Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining the session today. We will get started with session number 2 for the API literacy program, which we actually kicked off on July 22nd. Before we go ahead with the technical aspects of this particular session, I would like to take a minute to acknowledge the support that we have received uh, from two main entities. For example, here we have written on the left, as you can see, IEEE Region 10 Educational Activities, and on the right, IEEE Bangalore section. These two entities have supported us for conducting this session. And I'm Mohit. I'm chair of IEEE Mangalore subsection. So Mangalore subsection is actually implementing this program, uh, till August 20th. So let's move ahead and take a quick look at the background. As I mentioned, we started this particular program on July 22nd with a small 20 minutes curtain raiser. The YouTube recording is available. Session 1 of this program was held on July 23rd, and YouTube recording for that is also available. You can also subscribe to the YouTube channel of IEEE Mangalore India, which we have here, so that you can take a look at these YouTube recordings plus a few other videos that we have. And one very important statistics I'm very glad to share with all of you. This statistics is that after the last session that we had on July 23rd, I had mentioned that we want all the participants to complete the Postman Classroom program, the certification program, which is totally free by July 28th. And I'm very glad to report that as on date, 70 plus participants have already completed this program, and we have also verified their work, and we have also sent them an email back that they have completed the program successfully. So congratulations to all of you who have completed this particular program. And a lot of people have reached out by email asking for some more time. That is because they have some internal exams. Some people also have final exams going on for their university. So I have permitted them, and feel free to take few more days if you want, because we understand that you have exams and we don't want to pressurize you with this task. So take your time, but see to it that you complete this Postman Classroom program, because that's an eligibility criteria for you all to participate in the project competition that starts after August 6th. And the point of contact email address is mentioned here. Whatever emails you will send here, all those emails will be received by me. Just when you write the email, ensure that you provide the certification link, your name, college name, and IEEE membership number. So let's proceed. Um, so today we are going to talk about some very interesting aspects of APIs, which is called API architectural styles. This is as per the schedule that we had decided earlier, that we are going to discuss API architectural styles in detail. And I'm going to talk about 4 architectural styles today that are listed in 4 main bullets. The first one is called REST. In full form, it is called representational state transfer. I'll explain all of this in simple terminology. And then there's a second one, which is called SOAP, SOAP, which is Simple Object Access Protocol. And third is Graph Query Language, which is also called in short as GraphQL. And then the last one is called gRPC, where G is lowercase. RPC stands for remote procedure call. And this functionality of remote procedure call was developed by Google, and that's why it's named as gRPC. G stands for Google's framework of remote procedure call. So before I get into the technical details of it, uh, which also when I go into the detail, I'll ensure that we don't go into too much of detail, but just at a very high level. But before even I do that, let me take an analogy and try to explain to you that why is it important for us to understand these architectural styles. Because soon, once you complete the training session, so today we are already on the second session of the training. There is one more training session on August 5th, which will be mainly showcasing how we can use APIs to access IoT devices or request data from real IoT devices. Once we complete the training, all of you are going to go into project competition mode, where you will be building some new projects on APIs. And it will be very important at that point for you all to make a decision whether you want to go with REST style, or you want to go with SOAP, or you want to go with GraphQL, or you want to go with gRPC. Now, it's not really important for us as to which one of these you pick up. Actually, that's your decision. but then you have to see to it that your decision is a rational decision, and then there is a solid justification as to why you picked up one style and not the other one. So for you to be able to reach to a decision at that time, you will need this particular session. So that's why we are conducting this session, giving you a quick overview of what exactly these architectural styles mean. Now, if you remember very carefully, we had taken one analogy in the previous session that we had, where I said that the functionality of API can be actually compared with that of a digital restaurant, or the restaurants that we visit in everyday life. And we said there are three entities. There is a client, which is us. Then there is a server, which is the kitchen in the restaurant, the chef who is cooking the food, and the waiter is the API. Now that was a very simple explanation, no doubt about it. But now let's take a look at it, how actually this whole architecture of a client, server, and the API in between can be done in several different ways. And let me also tell you one thing, that there are not only these four styles that I'm presenting to you today, there are many more. Towards the end of this session, I will show you a web page, which is a blog from the Postman website. And they have very beautifully mentioned all the API architectural styles. There are many API architectural styles that I'm not covering because we have to restrict the session to 1 hour. And I'm picking up the ones that are unique in their aspects. So I have picked up these four because they have some uniqueness in each one of them. So let us go and talk about each one of them in detail now. So first of all, let's try to put an analogy in place for the REST style. Okay, so REST architectural style, I have written an analogy, is one of the most popular and simplest architectural styles that is used, and a lot of people use it today. I have a dedicated slide for each one of these four, so I will talk about them when I go to that slide. I'm right now only giving you a very high level perspective so that you understand why are we studying these four styles. So first is REST. So REST is the simplest one. If you want to simply compare this with a real-time analogy, what you need to do is you just need to imagine that you go to a restaurant, there is a menu available, you take a look at the items that are listed in the menu, you call the waiter, you tell them which item you want. That simple it is, and that's what is REST. So in fact, whatever we studied by default in the previous session, and some of you who have completed the Postman classroom program, you have been playing around with some APIs which are get or post or patch or delete. Most of them, they are all REST APIs that you are using. Now, of course, a little bit of customization is permitted. So let me again go back to the same example that I had taken last time. For instance, you have looked into the menu of the restaurant where you are, and you saw that there is an item that you want. And again, I come back to the same example which I had taken in the last session. Let's say you are ordering a masala dosa. Now, of course, masala dosa is listed item in the menu and you are ordering. It's not that when you order masala dosa, you can't ask them for some customizations. Actually, you can ask for some customizations, and many of us, we do that customization in our real world today. For instance, one of the customizations that you could be doing when you order masala dosa in a restaurant is you might be saying that please avoid putting oil, or maybe you can put less oil in the masala dosa. So REST architectural style is of course very simple, like picking up an item from a menu and placing an order in a hotel. But of course, it allows you little bit of customization within certain extent. Okay, you cannot customize a certain item the way you want totally. There is permission to customize, but only whatever they allow. It's not that you can ask for anything and then they would, like for example, you would say, in masala dosa, remove masala and put, let us say, cashews. Now that might not fit in their budget because the masala that they put is basically, and the item of the price that is listed in the menu is depending on what ingredients they put. Now, if you say don't put masala, which is potatoes and onion or other stuff, and just give me cashews in masala dosa, that's not going to be affordable to them. So probably such kind of customizations won't be permitted to you. So that's a REST in simple words for you. Now let's take a look at the second one, which is called SOAP, which is called a simple object access protocol. Now, if you want to take a look at the analogy of this, this is, I mean, it's not a very, very good analogy that I have here, but it still will help you to understand what we mean. The analogy to look at SOAP is that it's like you go inside a restaurant and there is no menu or any such thing. They come and they give you a form, like, like you people fill feedback forms in several places, right? Now, this is not a feedback form. This is a form to collect your order. So now they come and give you this form, and then they ask you questions to fill up in this form. Like they'll say, okay, Let us say you want to eat a burger, and when you want to eat the burger, they will ask you, okay, what kind of bread do you want? Do you want a wheat bread or a normal bread? Do you want a thin crust or do you want any other crust? Or do you want some toppings, like do you want onion to be there, do you want jalapeno to be there? So they'll ask you a set of questions, and you need to answer that question. The waiter comes to you, takes the form, goes inside, and then the item is prepared according to whatever choices you made in the form. Now, of course, this is better than rest in some way, because it allows you to pick up a lot of options that you want. um, it depends on your mood. If you're not in the mood of filling the form, you might prefer the rest approach, but you want a lot of customization, then you might prefer the soap approach. And there's only one disadvantage of soap, that let us say they gave you a form and you filled up. Now you want to tell them something more which they have not asked in that form to you. You cannot do that. That's the limitation of soap. So we will go to the subsequent slides and we will look at the details of all of this, but I'm just putting the playground set right now so that you understand why are we spending time on going through these programs. Now, the third one we have is graph query language. It was introduced by Facebook about 7 8 years ago. And the best analogy here is it's one of the most flexible architectural styles. It's also known as REST 2.0, because it kind of gives you more flexibility around the REST architecture itself. However, you can see from the name itself that it says the word language in that GraphQL, right? The L stands for language. So many a times, many community people have said that this cannot be considered as an architectural style like REST, but it's more like a language. Okay, that doesn't really matter. You can take it in any form. You take it as a language or you take it as an architectural style. But what is more important is it gives us more flexibility. Like I have written an analogy. If you are using GraphQL framework, you can see that you can specify what ingredients you want, in what quantity you want. Like you can specify particularly that, I want less onion, more of tomato, or I want less of specific sauce and more of cheese. And not only you specify what ingredients you want and in what quantities you want, you also specify how you want them to be arranged. Like for example, first you should put cheese and then you should put the other toppings on top, or you should no, first put up all the toppings and then put the cheese on top of it. So whether you want cheese first to be put up or you want it to be put up last, you actually have a lot of flexibility in GraphQL to specify what exactly you are asking for. And comes the last one now, the gRPC. As I said, it's a remote procedure called framework which has been developed by Google. RPC is not a new concept. RPC is taught in many subjects in engineering. But let us take a simple analogy. gRPC was developed particularly when you want a very organized and streamlined ordering process. So imagine there is, kind of a marriage function that's happening, and you've gone there for attending the marriage. And now you see that some of the marriage functions which you attend, they have a very systematic process of providing food to all the people who have come to attend the marriage. So what they tell you is they tell you to sit down in a row, and then very nicely one by one item is brought by one person and kept in your banana leaf or in your plate, right? And it goes so fast. They serve you like in a blink of an eye. They'll if you start talking to your friend who is sitting on your right or left, by the time you turn around back to the banana leaf, you will see 10 items have already been placed. So like gRPC is kind of a framework which has been specifically developed to be highly organized and to streamline the process of serving food. Maybe you can see the word ordering process. You can also think of it like serving food during the marriage function. So this is a very simple analogy for all of these four architectural styles. Now let's go into the detail of each one of them, and we will not spend more than 2 slides in each one, and then I'll also show you some hands-on sessions. Okay. Now, let's talk about REST. As I already told you, it's one of the most popular approach for designing APIs. You all have played with it if you have played with the Postman Classroom program. Whatever 7 requests you made in your collections, like get 3 times, I think there was post 2 times, one was patch, one was delete. Um, all of these things that you did it with REST APIs. And REST APIs are one of the best options for applications like mobile or web applications, wherein you just need, we call them as CRUD operations, where CRUD means C means creating, So for example, you used a library application in the Postman classroom program, right? So creating a book means adding a new book into the library. Read means find out the status of the book. Update means maybe somebody checked out the book from library, now it's not available, so update the status of the book. Or delete, for example, somebody lost the book that they had taken from library, now they are not able to return back. So any application that just requires these four primary operations: create data, read data, update data, delete data, we call them as CRUD operations, then REST APIs are the best. Another important feature of REST is that it supports various message formats. You can use HTML, you can use XML, you can use JSON objects, you can use plain text, and there are many other things. If you have done the classroom program, you might have already come across all of these when you are doing the exercises step by step. If not, whenever you do it, you can emphasize and you can focus on those aspects which I'm speaking right now. It's okay if you have not done the program. Whenever you do, focus on the fact that there are several formats in which you can specify the data that you want to send. For example, when you want to send a post request to the server, you know that you can specify a JSON object and that can be sent to the server. Now, APIs, which people design as per the REST principles, they have a technical name. These are called RESTful APIs. The reason they are called RESTful APIs is because they are following strictly the rules and regulations that have been put for using REST. And RESTful APIs are mainly resource based. So you directly try to access a resource, like you try to access the status of a book, or you directly update a book, or you delete a book. You are not invoking any method. Like, for example, when I say method, you can use the terminology in any programming language sense: C, C++, Java, Python, or anything. So RESTful APIs, they do not interact with any method or a function. They are always interacting with the resources directly. Remember this word, this is very important, okay? Because when I go to other architectural styles, I'm going to emphasize on the fact that REST is resource based. We are going to also talk about one which is method and function based, and that one is not resource based. So if you remember this, it will be easy for you to connect back. Oh, okay, REST was resource based, this one is not resource based, but instead it is method or function based. And lastly, on this slide, the last point, the resource that we are telling, okay, APIs are resource based, but what is the resource? What's the meaning of the resource? The resource can be an object, it can be a JSON object, it can be an entity, it can be a data within the system, it can be literally anything. So you define what is a resource and then you provide rules to access that resource. Now we will go to the next slide, which is just summarizing the advantages and disadvantages of REST framework. Okay, let's talk about the advantages first. REST is scalable. Why is it scalable? We need to look at the second bullet. That's what I have written in the bracket. Because of the next point mentioned below, REST is scalable. What is the next point? The next point says universal conventions. Okay, fantastic. What does it mean? It means that convention that you people used in Postman classroom program is a typical convention that will be used whenever you will use REST for doing whatever you want to do. So on August 5th, when we walk you through a session to access IoT devices which are in France, we are going to make an API call that will look exactly the same that you have used in the Postman classroom program for your library management project. There is not going to be any major difference over there because REST framework community has decided that there will be universal conventions that will be adopted. And that makes it really efficient for you as a developer, because if you understand the convention once, you don't need to learn another convention. You can just continue with that convention that you understood. And that brings more scalability because more and more people can actually define APIs that look alike, and hence a lot of people can consume those APIs easily. Another thing, again, that's also because of the universal convention, is interoperability. Interoperability means any client that supports HTTP can use REST APIs. Any platform or any programming language, wherever you can support HTTP, you can use REST. And of course, REST has one very important feature which we have not discussed in detail, but I'm mentioning in brief. For example, let us assume that there is some web page that is very popular right now. Let us say one blog was written by a very famous author, and a lot of people want to read the same content. Now the blog is just a web page. What people are doing is just making a GET request to that web page, and they are trying to get the data and read the content what is there on the blog. what we can do with the REST framework is that we don't want to burden the server all the time by the requests that are coming, and hence we introduce a concept called cache. Okay, let me try to explain to you with a digital restaurant in analogy. If you go and see in a restaurant, when you go and tell them that I need, so first of all, you go sit, waiter comes and says, yes sir, please tell me what you want, or madam, what you want. Then you say that, okay, I need water, a normal water is fine, or I need a Bisleri water. No matter whatever you tell them, they are not going to go to the kitchen to tell the chef that give me normal water or give me Bisleri water. That much they do by themselves. They don't go and burden the chef with these kind of requests that, okay, give me water. No. So this is the functionality that is available in REST, which is like a cache. So your API that you are using is kind of caching some of the things which it will reply to you immediately, and the request will not go to server for all the time. Like water will be served to you directly by the waiter. It won't go to the server for asking that, okay, give me water. Okay. So these are some important advantages. Now let's take a look at disadvantages. The disadvantage of REST APIs is that they follow a request reply pattern. Somebody needs to request, typically a client, and somebody needs to respond, typically a server. This pattern is actually not good and not compatible with real-time functionality. So for example, if you want a real-time cricket match to be shown to a web application or a mobile app, let us say you are using, we use these days things like Netflix or Amazon Prime or Geo, and we see a cricket match sometimes in these apps. Now, what's happening is I can't be requesting these, apps telling that, okay, tell me what happened on the next ball of the over, whether the person got out or whether they got a six or there was no run or what happened in the next ball. I can't request for every ball. I can't request, every time for one over of match to be seen. But once I send a connection request, the stream should just keep coming to me. All the balls that are being bowled, all the entire cricket match for 1 hour should just keep streaming on my device. Such kind of traffic is not suitable for REST APIs. Okay, that's what I mean by incompatibility with real-time functionality. Again, there is significant overhead when you want to transfer binary data. So what I mean by binary data is like you people all played with Postman Classroom program, and you saw that it was very easy for you to send text messages like what is the name of the book, who is the author of the book, what is the what was the genre of the book. You did all those things, but what if you want to try sending an image to the server, or you are requesting for an image from the server, or you want to send some video chunks? There is a significant overhead if you use REST APIs. And finally, REST depends a lot on HTTP. It was primarily designed to work with HTTP, so it does not really support a lot of non-HTTP based applications. So these are some limitations of REST. Since you have already played with the hands-on sessions of REST, I'm not going into the detail of the hands-on session here, but I'll show you hands-on session with SOAP. SOAP. Now let's take a look at SOAP and try to, now what we will do, we have used REST as one of the most important framework. Now we will contradict every other thing. We will compare with REST and try to understand how it is different from REST and where it is useful. This particular architectural style is a really good option for systems that have strict API requirements. Okay, because sometimes your data will be financial data, banking data, or healthcare information. And this applies to you all, because if you are going to do a project on from August 6 to August 20, and if your application that you are planning to build during this this whole time of 2 weeks, if you decide that it's going to be healthcare related or financial related, you might want to look at SOAP, and you might want to consider that, okay, should I use SOAP or should I use REST? REST is easy for me to develop as a developer, but SOAP gives me more security from API attack perspective. So I don't want people to misuse my API. I don't want them to get access to important data like my patient data, okay, or the financial account statement of anybody. So for such kind of applications, a lot of people have used SOAP instead of using REST, because as I told you earlier, if you remember, how does SOAP work in a restaurant? If the waiter comes to you, gives you a form and tells you, okay, these are the options and these are the questions. Every question has 2-3 options. Answer all the questions and tick the appropriate option that you want, and then they take the form inside the kitchen and then they cook the food. But I told you what was the limitation of this whole framework. The limitation is you wanted to specify something more, which they had not asked in that form. You are not permitted to do that. And that strictness actually comes from the fact that they want to keep the system secure. They don't want arbitrary requests to come from you, and then they will end up putting the system in danger. So they don't want to put the system at risk. That's why they don't allow you to answer any question which they have not asked. And there is another word that I have written in the bullet. It is an acronym. It is called, WS security, which means web services security. WS stands for W for web, S for services, web services security, and strictly typed contracts. I'll explain to you both the things. Now, one another thing that you might have seen when you were playing with the Postman program is that whatever data you were sending, you people might have also opened up the console as it was instructed in the program. If you look at the console, everything was logged in plain text. The data was not encrypted at all. Now, that's another limitation of REST, that when you have data which requires heavy encryption, REST is not ideally a framework that would be able to do that. So again, WS security in SOAP ensures that you can encrypt the data, and strictly typed contract is connected to the next bullet that I have written. As you saw in the previous slide, in REST, it was supporting JSON, HTML, XML, plain text, and so many other things. But in SOAP, the only message format that is supported is XML, and it follows a very strict structure. I'll show you one sample demo right now in about 5 minutes. And more important than the strict structure, it has a standardized contract. Contract means, for example, whenever you write HTML, you know that you have a head, you have a body, and there can be several headings, then there can be a body. Similar to that, in like you have in HTML, in XML, again, when we use SOAP, we have a head, we have a body, and they also use a word called envelope. So imagine like envelope is your postal envelope that you are sending to somebody. Then inside the envelope, you have the actual letter in which there is a header. Header means it is telling from whom to whom inside that letter. Of course, on the envelope also you write that information. And then the actual letter is the data or the body over there. Now, this standard contract that the SOAP people have proposed, they have a technical name. You don't need to remember it. It's not applicable to you going forward. But since we are covering, let me just talk about it. It's called Web Service Definition Language. So again, the two words are WNS, which is Web Service Definition Language, to specify how an API would work. You cannot specify any extra requirement from your side for the API. Whatever they tell you to answer the question, only that much you can answer. Now let's take a quick look at the advantages and disadvantages of SOAP. First of all, because we are using XML, there is a good thing that we can extend and add more functionality to XML. So we can keep adding more and more functionality. So that gives us extensibility. It also supports many protocol. If you remember, that was a limitation with REST. It was mainly working only with HTTP. SOAP works with a lot of protocols, the ones I have written here, like for example, SMTP or MSMQ. MSMQ is Microsoft Message Queue. And there are plenty of them which are supported by SOAP. Very strong typing. As I told you, there is an XML schema. It allows you to validate the data that the user is entering and also detect the error. So imagine the waiter coming to you, giving you a form. What error can you do in that? There are boxes against every question, So for example, they say, which ingredient would you want us to add? And they have given you 4 options. Now, what is the mistake that you will do in that? You just need to tick one of them, right? So data gets automatically validated because it is systematically collected from the client. And errors also becomes very easy to detect, because let's say 4 options were given. You intentionally did mischief and you ticked somewhere outside. The chef in the kitchen will just take a look at it and say, okay, this person has not answered the question correctly. They are just doing mischief by ticking, some option that I have not given at all. So detecting errors is easy. And again, there is a standardized error handling. Errors can be handled in a consistent manner. So for example, when this chef sees that you have not ticked any one of the 4 options, and you have ticked something outside, there are 2-3 things that they can do. They'll put the ingredient by themselves. They'll not ask you again. So there are 4 ingredients they had listed. You did not tick anything. So now they take a decision and put any ingredient. That can be harsh. You don't want to be behaving like that with your client. So what you might do is you might send the waiter again and say, okay, you did not tick the option properly. Please tell us which ingredient you want. So you know how to handle an error if any error comes when the data is being provided by the client. And I told you earlier, there is a heightened security in SOAP. There's a built-in security. You can put digital signatures, you can put encryption, which and all was not possible in the previous framework that we were discussing. However, the more strict you are, more extensible you are, there's something else that's going to get affected. So, we need to balance it out. So there is more extensibility, there is more security, and hence one of the disadvantages, performance is poor because messages are too large due to the strict XML structure that we follow. So, the amount of time that REST API would need to fetch the data versus the SOAP API would need, SOAP might need more because you need to send a large amount of message, a large message, and then there's a lot of processing that the person has to do in the kitchen and then send back your food. So performance is late, and if you want to compare the performance, a hotel might take more time to cook your food because you have to provide. So you go into the restaurant first, you fill the form, they take the form inside, they find a mistake, they come back to you again, you refill the form, you send it back, then they start cooking. It takes a lot of time, right? So this is why it is less performant. It's very complex because you need to know how XML works from a developer perspective. You need to be pretty good at XML, otherwise you will not be able to do it. And it's very less intuitive. Like REST was so intuitive. SOAP is not intuitive, and I have written in bracket that I'll show you this when I go to the hands-on session. So the next slide is a placeholder for the demo. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over the tabs, and whenever I do this, you all know that I need your help. So once you start seeing my other screen, please raise your hands so that I understand that you are able to see the screen. I can just see 2-3 people. Oh, okay. All right. It has gone up now. Yeah. Thanks, everyone. I'll zoom in a bit on this page so that you all can take a better look at it. So this is my Postman interface. I have logged into a browser, and it's okay to use Postman in browser if you're comfortable. You can see I also completed the Postman API Fundamental Student Expert program. This is one of my workspaces. Then this was a default workspace that Postman had given, but for this session today, I created one separate workspace. Okay, so let me just give a benefit of doubt and just increase the zoom by one more. Okay, so now I'll just click on this, or I can also go from here on the workspaces and I can say, okay, go to session 2, which is, the SOAP collection that I have. So now here you can see I have a SOAP collection. The name of this collection is SOAP collection. And I have several requests which I have kept ready. So this is my collection. And let me again zoom in a bit. So, all right, I think that window is going away. So now you see this is a SOAP collection, and then I have kept 3 examples ready. I will, at the end of this session, I will give you a web page where you can go and step by step follow whatever I have done, so that you also can, have this collection ready. But like I have created a separate workspace which does not impact my Postman API Fundamental Student Expert, I would request you also to create a separate workspace and do this later. Okay. So now you can see there are 3 post requests that I have said, and there is a separate program that each one does. The first one is, text equivalent numeric values. So for example, we write, 500 in the, so let me just click on this and show it to you. So I click on it, and you can see this is the endpoint. All of this information is available in that web page. So you don't need to worry that where will we get the endpoint. Everything will be provided to you. Don't worry about it. Let me, just zoom in on this side a bit more. And now you can see what I have done is I have given the post API. I have given the endpoint, and then I go to body, and then in that I select raw, like you people were doing the same thing when you did the Postman classroom program. But when you selected raw, the subsequent option that you all were selecting was JSON. I told you REST supports JSON, but SOAP does not support JSON. So we have to select XML because it supports only XML. Let me zoom out again and show it to you. I have pasted this particular XML code in this XML placeholder which was given to me. And this code is also available on that web page from where I have taken. So you don't need to worry about where will I get this. But see, what we have done is we have written 500 here. Once I click on send and I start getting the responses, which I'll have to zoom out to show it to you a little bit here. So you can see my responses have started coming. I'll just take this little up and again zoom in. And you can see I had given the number 500 and it returns back the text message to me saying 500 here. And I was just playing around with this in the afternoon today, and I gave a really, really big number. Like, for example, instead of 500, I just gave 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, let us say. And then I said, send the request, and it said, okay, what you have entered is 9,999,999. So I don't know where it will break, but for now, this API seems to be working fine. So now this entire thing is done using SOAP, and it's strictly done using XML. The steps to do this were very simple. Just 3 steps were there. I will not spend time here. I will explain to you. I'll give you the link and you can do that in the hands-on exercise. Okay. So similar to this, I have another program which is ready, one API request, which is called temperature conversion. So it converts from Fahrenheit to Celsius. And similarly, there is another one function which is ISBN validation. ISBN validation means if you guys have any international book with you or any book that has an ISBN number, you can take that ISBN number and provide it into this API in the body of the XML data that we have added. And at the response, you will either see a true or false. True or false means whether this ISBN is a valid ISBN or it is not a valid ISBN. So let me just edit this ISBN and play around with it. And what I say is I just remove the last 2-3 digits and then I click on send. It says false. This is not a recognized ISBN because the number of digits are also less. So I again put back what it was and then I say send, and now it says true because that's a valid ISBN. So these all things, small experiments have been done using SOAP. You can also try this once this session is over and I give you the link. Let me switch back to my slides. And again, I'll need your help to confirm that my slides are visible. The one that I said, that demo session for the SOAP APIs. Okay, so I can see hands going up. Thank you so much. Let us proceed and take a look at the last 2 frameworks, GraphQL. It's an open source framework made available by Facebook. It is particularly useful for querying the data and also manipulating the data. And it's a language for querying and manipulation. As I mentioned to you all earlier, it is sometimes referred to as REST 2.0. But again, remember, many people say that GraphQL is a specification or it is a language, whereas REST is an architecture. But again, this is a point, something that needs a lot of discussion. But you can for now make an assumption that, okay, GraphQL builds on top of kind of REST and then it's similar in some way. Some people will say, no, it is not similar, but that it depends on for what purpose you are using GraphQL and how you look at it. Now, one thing, as I mentioned to all of you when I was explaining the REST slide, I told you, focus on the word that REST is resource-based and it is not based on a method or a function. Here is one very important line that you see. GraphQL is graph-based instead of resource-based. So we have started contradicting things now, right? REST is resource-based, GraphQL is graph-based. What do you mean that it is graph-based? All your data that you have, you visualize or organize as a graph. And once you have the graph ready, okay, you place them in proper order in the graph. Now you run queries to fetch that data from that graph. So you prepared a graph, you stored your data in a graph in different places, and now you go and try to fetch a query. So let's make a simple graph. I want to prepare tea for the guests who have come at home. I need a few things to prepare tea. First, I need the bowl in which I'm going to prepare tea. I need milk. I need the tea powder. I will need sugar. I need all these items. What I do is, of course, we don't do this in real life because we know it's all kept in kitchen. And all of these things are ideally kept besides each other. Like the sugar bowl is besides the tea powder, so that you pick up both of them, one after the other. You don't go hunting every day. Oh, where is sugar today? Oh, where is tea powder today? So what you do is, you understand what are your requirements of preparing the tea. You make a graph, and okay, now you say, you make a query. I need this. So your kitchen, all the items in the kitchen, arrange it as a graph. Okay. For preparing coffee, what do you need? For preparing tea, what do you need? To prepare kashaya, what would you need? Or to prepare any other item, what do you need? So all the items in your kitchen, you organize in a graph format. And now you say, okay, I need to make tea, get me all the necessary ingredients to get tea. And you make a query and you fetch all that data. Okay. So GraphQL has one advantage that it allows clients to retrieve just the data that they need, but in a very structured way, because it's stored as a graph and you fetch it in a specific way, in a specific format, and it comes to you just the data that you want and no unnecessary data. Again, it supports one message format, XML. It also supports HTTP. Nowadays, a lot of things have changed, and you need not worry about what kind of different message formats it supports, because it's building on top of REST. So let me talk about the advantages and disadvantages of GraphQL. We visualize everything as graphs instead of resources, and that's why we get a very powerful query interface by which we can navigate the graph, we can traverse the graph, we can discover the items in the graph and take it. And what is the most important use case today of GraphQL? If you are building APIs for web and mobile application, you preferably want to use GraphQL. It exactly delivers the data that the front-end developers will need. And many a times in the front end, people today use React or Next.js or other things. You can use GraphQL seamlessly with all of those. And again, many people have defined GraphQL as it's a query language for APIs, right? The disadvantages are the complexity of a GraphQL query. Again, it adds more complexity when you want to go search in a bigger graph. REST did not have this problem. Caching in GraphQL is not so easy like it was in REST. I gave an example that the waiter will bring water to you. It will not go to the kitchen because it was doing caching. That kind of caching is very tricky to do in GraphQL. And again, rate limiting. Rate limiting means how many API calls can you make? Imagine you going to the waiter and calling him or her every 2 minutes and telling this needed, this needed, this needed, So this is not correct. There are certain number of calls that you can make to an API, and it's very easy to restrict the number of calls that you make in REST. It is difficult to restrict the number of calls that you make with GraphQL. So these are some disadvantages. Let us talk to the last one, the gRPC, the Google's framework for RPC. As I mentioned to you, this is all about making your system super fast. So you need to build APIs that are very fast and efficient, then you might want to consider this framework. And please again remember, I told you REST is resource based. It was not based on function or method. This is quite opposite. gRPC is method and function based, and it is not resource based. So what does it mean that it is method based or function based? It means that whenever I want to make an API call, I'll point to a method or a function which is available in the other machine, which is a server machine. And when I make the call is received by the server. The server identifies which method or function Mohit is calling, and then it goes and triggers that function locally. And whatever data is returned by that local function to the server forwards that particular data to me. So I do not get access to the resource directly. I access the methods and functions. I tell the server I need to access this data. So it's ideally like you might have used something like setters and getters, right? Basically, you use set and get to obtain a variable value or to set a variable value rather than accessing the value directly or rather than changing the value directly. So for security reasons, what we do is we don't allow certain variables to be accessed by outside people. So what we say, see, if you want to make any changes to that variable, you tell me, I will do it for you. And that's what is gRPC. So you tell the server, I want this to be done. The server will do it for you and tell you the update that whether it is done or not. And more importantly, gRPC uses HTTP2 as the transport protocol, wherein you can send multiple parallel requests. And there is also one very fantastic feature which is called binary encoding. If you remember, I told you that transferring image or video, which has to be encoded in a binary format in REST, was very difficult. gRPC gives you a solution for that. It reduces your overhead for binary data transfer. If you remember what I mentioned in REST, there was more overhead for transferring images and video. Here, the overhead is less. So this is better in terms of comparing with REST when it comes to sending images or video. And it also provides support for bidirectional streaming, which was also a problem in REST. I gave you an example of a cricket match being streamed, but that is one way. What is two-way streaming? Two-way streaming is I switch on my camera, I'm talking to you, you switch on your cameras, and you talk. The stream is going from me to you. It's coming from you to me. It's a bidirectional stream that is happening. And of course, it supports different programming languages. So that brings a lot of flexibility. But let's now conclude about talking about these frameworks by seeing that what are the advantages and disadvantages of gRPC. Advantage, it is very suitable for high performance communication, supports multiple programming languages, and supports real-time communication services like real media streaming and whatever I was giving the example with Amazon Prime or Netflix or stuff like that. Disadvantages, it has a very steep learning curve. It involves very complicated topics, which might be difficult for beginners to catch up, like protocol buffers. I'm not going to go and discuss a lot about protocol buffers because that itself is, half an hour, 1 hour discussion. It's a very heavy machinery for data serialization. So I have just summarized it in a very, very high level that if you want to serialize your data means you want to send the data in a specific order, or you want to see that the format is unique to be understood across different platforms, then you need to use protocol buffers. Now, we need not go into that today. And then again, it is not suitable for resource constrained devices. So you do not want to use gRPC with IoT devices. It's not suitable to be used with IoT devices, primarily because it has a lot of memory requirement, and these IoT devices have less memory. More importantly, gRPC not just has more memory requirement, but it also consumes a lot of CPU resources. So again, IoT devices have a shortage of CPU resources. So we don't want to go into that direction. Now, to summarize, there is a nice little page which is provided by Postman, where it says different types of APIs, but actually what they mean is different architectural styles. So I'm going to migrate to that web page, and then you can tell me whether we have migrated successfully without any problem. So do you all see, can you please raise hands and confirm that you are able to see the new page that I have switched over to? Okay, thanks. I can see some hands going up. So you can see this is a small diagram that they have kept, and you can see we discussed all four today. We discussed gRPC, we discussed SOAP, we discussed GraphQL, and we discussed REST. Of course, we went in our own order. I did not follow this order. I thought the one that I'm following will be easy for people to capture. But you can see that it's a guide to different API types. And let me zoom in a bit. So they talk about REST, and they also point you to related things. So for example, when you are reading this web page, you can actually go to the REST API client and practice, and they tell you the pros. That means what is a good thing about REST. Of course, their pros and cons, then the ones that I have listed in the slides are different. I have tried adding something more by searching from other sources also. Then cons, then for the SOAP, they have done the same thing. Then for GraphQL, they have done the same thing, gRPC. But what I wanted to show you is that there is something called WebSockets, which I did not discuss today because of time, because I thought it will be too much to add, more than 4 in 1 hour. So WebSockets, then there is something, there's called webhooks, which they are not listed here, but you can find on the internet. Webhooks are different, WebSockets are different, and there are many such architectural styles. But these 4, the ones that we discussed, have unique aspects, and they are used very popularly today. Not that WebSockets are not used; they are also used. But we will cover them, or we'll point you to some resources which you can use and try to learn about them. And you can use anything for your project, whichever we have not discussed today. Also, you can use for your project. We are not restricting you to choose any of the architectural styles. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my slides. Need confirmation again quickly from some people whether we are able to see the screens. Can you raise hand so that I know that I'm okay? I can see some people raising. Now what I'm going to do is, like last time, we are going to do some quiz. We'll have some fun. So I'm going to point you to the next page, and I'm going to ask you to log into the same site. But this time, you might have to enter your name before you take the quiz. Please enter your name. Take your time, no rush. And in bracket, put your college name in abbreviations. For example, you can be from any part of Karnataka or even outside, but you can just put the college name in brief, and you can just close the bracket so that at the end we can see. And then, of course, this time there's a slight bit of a difference. You will get only 30 seconds to answer the question. Last time it was dynamic. I was deciding it. This time I have made the system such that you will not get more than 30 seconds. 30 seconds is very good amount of time. So don't rush, read the question properly, try to answer it. And of course, there can be correct answers, wrong answers. We'll discuss all of them. So I'm going to the next slide and I'll start the presentation from my side. So you all should start seeing, and can you please give thumbs up once you go there after you enter your name. Please give me thumbs up so that I can see all of you coming to this particular platform. So enter your names, put your college name, and then give me thumbs up once you have reached on that page. I'll wait for people. I can see only 6 or 7 thumbs up. So please keep giving it so that I know that a lot of people are able to access it. I'm waiting. I'll just give you a little more time so that if you're on phone or something, you need time to enter all the details. So yeah. And if you want, the code is available on my PPT, so you can see that code itself. Okay, I think we can move forward to see to it that we complete the whole exercise in time. So let us go ahead. And I'm waiting, it's processing. So let's see a couple of minutes. All right, I can see 49, 50 players ready, 62 people ready, 63 people ready. We have more than 120 people in the group. Come on. All right, keep going, keep going. 76 players are ready. I want at least about 100 people to be ready. So you are all having a nice little icon in front of me. You might not be able to see, but I'll take some photos and send it to you guys. Okay, 79 people ready. Please, can we have a little more so that I can start the quiz? Okay, so let's start the quiz now. Soon you will start seeing the questions in your screen soon. Which of the following must be used for real-time communication? You have 15 seconds to go. All right, so we have a lot of people who have voted, and a lot of people have clicked on REST, uh, which actually is not good for real-time communication. As we were discussing, if you want real-time communication like the streaming and stuff, we need to use gRPC more. Very few people have asked GraphQL. Some more people have added SOAP, but about 22 people have given the correct answer that it is gRPC. Let's keep moving to the next. So again, we have about 100 people ready. Oh, great. Okay. So now, which of the following is the most suited for create, read, update, delete applications? You have 15 more seconds to go. Three more seconds to go. All right. So we have a lot of people giving correct answers. REST is the correct answer because, as I mentioned to you, REST is useful for creating, reading, updating, delete applications, exactly what we did in Postman Classroom program. Some people have answered GraphQL. SOAP and gRPC, which are not the correct answers. Let's keep moving to the next question. How many players are ready now? Let me check. Okay, we have more than 97, 98. Okay, 100 people almost now. So the next question should come in front of you soon. Which of the following is most suitable to develop APIs for mobile applications? Answer carefully. Twenty seconds remaining. Last 2 seconds. All right, again, we have majority of the people giving correct answers. The correct answer is GraphQL. REST is not the correct answer. SOAP is also not the correct answer. And gRPC is also not the right answer. That takes us to the leaderboard. So let us see how do we have the leaders coming in. So Devesh Shetty leads the game with 2962 points. I can see that. Congratulations for giving all the correct answers. So coming back to Microsoft Teams, let's proceed. Thank you again for participating in this quiz. I will stop presenting the Mentimeter quiz. We'll close this and we will go back to doing the last formalities for wrapping up the session in exactly about 2 to 3 minutes from now. So come back, all of you, to Microsoft Teams. Now we talk about the hands-on practice. So if you might have attended my curtain raiser session, I did mention very clearly that we do not have, and we did not want also to put a lot of hands-on exercises at every step, because one thing that was very clear to me is that a lot of students are going through examinations and we did not want to put pressure. So first things first, complete Postman classroom program if you have not completed yet. Please do not focus on anything else. Do not focus on REST, SOAP, GraphQL, or gRPC APIs as of now. There is no other certification program that you have to complete. You have to first complete classroom program because you need the eligibility to participate further after August 5th. And those who have completed Postman classroom program, there are beautiful examples provided by the Postman team for all the 4 API architectural styles that we discussed today: REST, SOAP, GraphQL, and gRPC. You can simply fork the collection into your local workspace and play with it. I think all of those, and again, those who have not completed the Postman classroom program will not understand the meaning of forking the collection. So it's very important that you complete the Postman classroom program first. Then you fork the collection to your local workspace and play with it. Apart from these examples, let me tell you, a lot of public collections are available for REST, SOAP, GraphQL, and gRPC. You can fork that also. Let me demonstrate quickly 1 or 2 in a minute. And what I have done is I have prepared a Google Doc for all of you where I have put the resources all in one for all of these things. So let me just quickly take you to the Google Doc, which I have prepared, and I'm sharing the tab. Again, I'll need a bit of confirmation from people in the MS Teams. Can you please raise hands so that I can see that you all are able to see my Google Doc? Okay, so you can see the Google Doc here. These are the resources for today's session. So there is a nice article on what is REST API, and the public REST API collection is here. So if you click on this, it will take you to the Postman collection. Let it open, and I will also share my tab and I'll show it to you as to where you can see. And these APIs will be all needed for your projects. You can borrow these APIs for your project and you can use them in your project. So again, I have gone to Postman window. Can somebody again in MS Teams give me quick confirmation that you are able to see the Postman window? All right, great, thanks. I can see some hands going up. And if you see this part here on the right hand side, you can see that there are so many APIs which they have made available. For example, there is a collections for animals. If you want to expand, you can see cat facts, dog breeds, pet food. Then you can see APIs, barcodes, bikes, books, cars, church, cities, comics, cryptocurrency, domains, drones, earthquake, Game of Thrones, gender, IP address, jobs, jokes, logos, music, news, Pokemon, postal codes, quotes. So like this, if you go back to my Google Doc, again, just a quick hands up for me to confirm that I'm on the right track and you are able to see my Google Doc. So in the Google Doc, again, you can see like I clicked on this public REST API collection. There are lots of collection that Postman has given for SOAP also. And whatever collection I was showing to you in my Postman account, I prepared them using these 3 links. So please go through these 3 links. Again, these instructions are only for those who have completed Postman Classroom program already. And then if you want to see what are the publicly available SOAP API collections, you can click on this. Like I showed you the collection right now for REST APIs, there's a separate collection for SOAP APIs. There is a separate collection for GraphQL APIs. Then there is lastly a separate collection for gRPC APIs. So you will get a lot of APIs already built and available. If you want to use any of these for your project, you are totally free to use them for your project. Okay. Do not hesitate. They are all available. We have permission from Postman to use it, and they are all public. All the world is using it. We can also use it. So that was pretty much from my side. Let me go back to the PPT slides and let me give it a second for it to come back. Again, can you confirm that you can see hands-on practice slide right now? Okay, thank you. So that was pretty much it. Again, repeating, those who have not completed Postman Classroom program, please complete it. Those who have completed it, go to LinkedIn, have some fun, put your expert badge that you have, tag IEEE Bangalore section, tag IEEE R10 educational activities, tag your respective subsection if you are from Mangalore, tag Mangalore subsection, tag North Karnataka if you are from North Karnataka subsection, tag Mysore subsection, respective subsections you tag your college, let people know that you completed this program. And that's it from my side. Thank you again for attending this session. Going back, this is the link where you will find the summary of all the APIs that we have discussed in today's session. So I'm open to questions. Please ask your questions in the chat box and we can discuss all of them. Let me show you this. So please go ahead and ask me any questions if you have. If you have any kind of doubts, any issues, and of course, you can go to the Telegram group that we have created so that you can ask the questions over there also. So if Postman Classroom program specific questions are there, please. And by the way, our next session will be on August 5th, same time, where we will be trying to access some IoT devices which are actually located in a lab in France. And we'll be trying to use APIs to interact with that hardware. So that will be one of the last training sessions that we will have. Okay, there is one question. So let me take that. Is there any prerequisite to learn XML if I'm a beginner? Not really. You can go to some very good sites like, for example, w3schools.com and similar other kind of platforms where they give you a very good explanation about what is XML. So you can start learning from there and you don't need to be a champion at that. You can start picking up now also. That's okay. So that was one question. Any other question that we have today? Okay, I'm not seeing any questions coming forward. So if there is anything else, please feel free to write an email and we'll be happy to get in touch with you over the email. Those who have not completed the certification program, do it. And then you can complete these hands-on exercises which we have specified. But again, there's no deadline to complete any of this SOAP, GraphQL, or gRPC API collections. That is information for you for your projects. So you might want to see all those collections and start getting ready for your project. There is nothing that we are expecting you to complete as a part of the hands-on session in that. It's up to you to decide if you want to try SOAP or if you want to try GraphQL, then those are the resources. And I'll be sharing those resources in the email after this session. The Google Doc link will also be provided to you. So yeah, you can try using, all of the things, whatever I have told. Postman has articles for all of those. Uh, Play around with all those things. And those who are asking me about the course, you can go back to my YouTube recording, which is available and shared with all of you. Ask your friends, and you will be able to get the course details from there about Postman Classroom program. Okay. And all four, whatever we have discussed, plus WebSockets and all are supported in Postman. You can play around with them. As I showed you the resource page, those resources are also blogs from Postman itself. So there was one question that can we, use gRPC API in Postman? Yes, you can use it. There's the resource, the Google document which I'm sharing with you. It has all the details of how you can do it. There are example programs also that you can actually use. Okay, so since there are no more questions, thanks everyone for attending the session. Hope it was useful and you got to learn something. Let's meet again on August 5th, and that would be the last session for the training, after which we will get into the project mode. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Prepare well for your exams. Thanks again, everyone, for joining the session today. Take care. Stay safe. Bye-bye.